Today, we're
Yeah.
joined by David Marquardt, who's the managing partner of IYK Capital, or if you know Capital. So, welcome to the podcast, David. And why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about yourself and what you guys are doing at IYK Capital?
Thanks, Jeff. Excited to be here. Well, I basically advocate for and invest in crypto. A bit about myself. I've been on in traditional finance for almost 20 years to some capacity. I entered TradFi just before the global financial crisis in 2007. I actually interned at Lehman Brothers to date myself. And then I did high frequency trading, black box trading during the global financial crisis. Then I went to a volatility arbitrage firm where I did different relative volatility derivative strategies. I created my first hedge fund when I was 27, doing a hybrid option strategy. And after 5 years, I worked for a family in Los Angeles doing option strategies for high net worth individuals. And then I spun out in 2024 to basically create a fund that mirrors my personal investment strategies. Individuals who want me to invest their money for them, they could follow me, invest with me, and have me manage their money. And so I spent a lot of my time today really advocating for crypto. Crypto is not a bad word. I think it's going to be a revolution. I think it's going to have major impacts in our society. I think more people should be talking about it. So I spent a lot of my time advocating for that. And then naturally, I invested in it as well.
That's great. So, we're going to put disclaimers, not financial advice or
Of course,
simply
of course.
telling stories, but we're going to use words that, like crypto and finance. This is a great background. I saw a Broadway play about the history of Lehman Brothers, the family. It was fascinating where it started and where it ended up. Um,
Mhm.
but to pull on a thread, crypto, Bitcoin, blockchains, where do you see that, and like how do we bridge the understanding of this to normies in finance and TradFi and the normal general public? And again, I read some of your work about the truth chain, the blockchain, like really like so how does that benefit, or what's your point of view on that you like to bridge when you talk to normal people about it?
Yeah, my rabbit hole went from Bitcoin to smart contract chains like Ethereum and Solana into Oracle networks. And most people like it in crypto, they start with Bitcoin. One of the big unlocks of Bitcoin is not it's this better form of sound money than physical gold, the idea of sound money that's, been there for thousands of years. But what it really enabled was kind of liquid, decentralized value capture. We could create value, hold it anywhere, and anyone with a smartphone, and you can organize in a decentralized format or in distributed format. Meaning, this is the first non-centralized form of money that is globally distributed and liquid. And that is revolutionary. And, even to this day, people don't fully appreciate how that's going to change economic relationships all over the world, because that Bitcoin network globally is actually larger than any single jurisdiction of the US dollar, of any fiat currency, of any centralized form of money. So that's a big deal. And that's what Bitcoin unlocks. And then you have all these different networks, these smart contract networks that are also equally as big, and you can create businesses on these platforms. You have a lot of automation with the smart contract. And then you have these things called Oracle networks, which sit above all those different blockchains. Now, if blockchains are like different websites, they're like different silos of compute. You can connect all those blockchains with universal protocols, such as the Oracle layer. And the Oracle layer that I advocate for, Chainlink, is really interesting because they create this incentive mechanism for truth. You get paid to verify truth. And you can verify it before you put it on a blockchain, which is really interesting. So Bitcoin created kind of sound money. Now we have incentivized truth. We have digital truth that runs on blockchains. And if you appreciate that, so much of the infrastructure of all economic relationships of the global financial system are probably going to upgrade into this blockchain format, which is definitely happening. So these concepts like decentralized finance, decentralized value, even Bitcoin itself, digital truth and verified truth with cryptographic value behind it, when we get into concepts like AI and stuff like that, you think that these are going to have huge impacts on the world. And as you know very well, over the last 15 years, Bitcoin has had a negative connotation in reality. And unfortunately, that skews its reputation with people's understanding of it. In my opinion, because it's going to be so disruptive, more people really should be talking about it. And it's not a bad thing. I think it's going to be a very net positive thing on the world. And so I take pride in spending my energy to advocating for these things, recognizing that I think it's net positive for everybody, but we should be
Yep.
preparing and, you might want to consider investing accordingly.
Yeah, the information gap of people that done the work on this is, Bitcoin or blockchain is good for the environment. This is, uh, was it triple entry accounting? It's an innovation, the Byzantine general's problem, like really revolutionary stuff. And the truth chain of having it have an agreement on things, decentralized, permissionless. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a simple model, like truth over trust.
right.
Anything where we rely on trust or paper-based contracts, we hope that it doesn't, but it very much can be exploited and has been the histories forever. But if you can replace that with something autonomous that doesn't have discretion, there's no subjectivity to that truth. And this eliminates the ability for fraud or expectation of truth and of trust. And I think that's a good thing. That's an improvement. That's net
Yeah.
positive.
Incentives, don't trust, verify,
Totally.
global dispersed. So let's bring it back to you. Who is your ideal customer profile? Like who do you help? And then how does the blockchain or Bitcoin like enable your strategy, your mission to to help them? So I guess what I'm asking in a roundabout way is a viewer of listening to this, if they were to say, oh, like that sounds like me, I should call you. Like who is it that your target market is that you're helping out?
Yeah, I try to help anyone that wants to better understand this technology. I think the better we can collectively understand it, realizing crypto is not a bad word, I think that makes everyone individually see things a little more clear. So, from an advocate's perspective, that's what I do. And I like talking about it. I think it's fun. I think it's a very exciting time to be alive. And so I enjoy doing that. And as far as my business, you know, I feel most people are really bad investors. Like most people, we don't have a lot of financial education. It's not really standardized, and then the financial system is changing so rapidly. So the people that I help from a professional perspective are people that just want me to invest on their behalf for them. And I don't sell a particular strategy. I don't reverse engineer my strategy to where I think there's market demand. I basically take my personal investing strategy and I've wrapped it in a fund so that if anyone wants access to that, they can have it.
That's great. And I was going to ask you, the Substack, is that public? Do you talk about it publicly?
No, no, it
We
is
can edit this out.
private.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll
There's
edit
like,
this out.
my X handle is public. My LinkedIn profile is public. A lot of the things I put in X, there's like, I have a couple good conspiracy theories, but I think with a lot of technology and this, alpha, if you think about alpha from an investment perspective, it's kind of how far up this asymmetric information curve you are. How much do you know? How much do you understand these topics? And, there's these ideas where if you had a large knowledge foundation, the opportunities of investment become pretty easy because, you see things very clearly, you understand a lot of things. But if you don't, I think the knowledge gap is pretty small. And I think it's important to keep some things private, keep some things not public displayed. People do misinterpret things, you don't want to give off the wrong impression. And, you want to be true to your word. You want to own everything you say. So, you don't want to broadcast everything publicly all the time.
For
Um,
sure.
my Substack, it gets pretty technical, and I also consider it like my personal diary. It's where I kind of vent around these topics of like, this is taking over the world. Why are more people talking about it? And
Yeah.
so I try to do that in a safe space of select readers as opposed to publicly.
Well, I think your website's invite only, or there requires a login, right? So it's there. You do gatekeep in a professional manner to say, you know where to find me, but at the same time, you have to be a client to log in to go deeper into ABC, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Switching gears. AI. So talking about being on the forefront of Bitcoin, crypto, and then AI, I'm going down this rabbit hole about how the AI is going to use crypto for transactions. Are you seeing that with like Oddbot and these agents, and like what is the currency of agents? And is it the Bitcoin? Is it Lightning? Is it crypto? Is it stable coins? Like is a chatbot going to get a bank account? No. So therefore, and then what's even more interesting is when the chatbots are putting humans to work. I don't know if you've seen these bounties where people are showing up in real life, like at Times Square with a sign says, I'm a human. I'm doing a work that the machines can't do. So it's almost like an API call into the meat space. But the current, where it's like, humans will work for, but what's the currency that we can all not trust but verify, like verify but not trust each other is, the Bitcoin, the blockchains and what have you. So my question for you is like, yeah, do you have a point of view in like there on where AI is going?
Totally. I spent a lot of time in that space. I think this is super fascinating. A lot of the AI researchers in their recent content are saying that this is accelerating faster than we're really appreciating it. A lot of them are calling that singularity is here, singularity is here. So yeah, of course, like AIs will communicate with other AI. Well, a bank account is a wall is a bank account. I think those things kind of merge together from a UX perspective in the future. Yes, they interact with digital currencies. They interact with classic, it's like 402, like API Web 2 payments. That was a big unlock like a month ago. So that's definitely all happening. Of course, they're using stable coins and various cryptocurrencies to communicate. Use them on wallets. So I think everything accelerates into this internet of contracts where you think the internet's kind of reliable, 99% reliable. I think it
Mm.
accelerates to like a 99.999% reliable. So everything becomes autonomous, and the things that need to be are cryptographically verified. So I think crypto solves the AI hallucination problem. And then you have a lot of like mechanisms in crypto that are, consensus finding mechanisms. So it's interesting is you can find there's this one project where they try to do a or try to interpret a corporate action, in finance, a complex one cross border, cross jurisdiction, cross currency. And what you can do is you can fill that problem into multiple LLMs. So what does ChatGPT, was XAI, was Perplexity, was Claude say about it? Find the consensus across multiple LLMs and use that consensus as actually a bigger, more sound verification system than a single AI. So now you get consensus across AIs, use that as kind of institutional standards. That worked well in that project. And so, yeah, we're seeing it. The features will be very exciting with this. What kind of happens out of it. I think entrepreneurship flourishes. I think it enables people to run their own businesses, become independent, productize themselves. That makes it cost a lot of things, legal work, other things that are hiccups for, or a lot of friction for small businesses down dramatically. So yeah, I think it's like in the direction of the singularity for sure. And I think it's an exciting time to be alive and watch it play out.
And AI is not going to take your job if you have a differentiated point of view, right? So, like the consensus of like, what does AI think? It's like, no, it's just it's looking through all the information and telling you. It's like predictive text. It's telling you what the most logical, probable answer is. But then we always say that when you're doing creative writing and you have a different point of view, it can't place you. And so with your investment strategies, do you see yourself saying, okay, I'm going to use AI at the same time, like my point of view is not a consensus or predictable or so obvious, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it really, it brings the level of foundational of like common knowledge or like, right now we're in that access to common knowledge is kind of the high bar. But eventually when the UX becomes so seamless, it brings up common knowledge really high.
Mm,
So, if you have any edge over anyone else, what does that look like? And that's probably something personal. It's probably not in the LLMs.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of the Claude developments, and every 24 hours, people are freaking out that a whole industry, like a startup has been disrupted because of one feature release, with Claude or let's say Google. And it's like, well, maybe,
Yeah.
or that helps your workflow. But again, your point of view should be a little different. Do you have any?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good point, Jeff. I think these things are happening and they're happening really quickly. And I think the velocity is the thing that's the biggest variable. But if you do, really consider that they're definitely happening, we're never going to be less tech forward than we are today. What are kind of like the most probable events? And the most probable events are still extremely different than the world that we live in today. And those events are happening, not too far from the future because nonstop revelations are coming out of this. Like large industries are getting disrupted extremely quickly. Like, and if you're not using it, you're probably falling behind a little bit. If you're not adapting, you're falling behind. And so, yeah, I love seeing people in different industries find niche ways to embrace it and radically improve their productivity, buy more time to spend with their kids while running a small business. These things are great. These are all net positive.
Yeah. And without like sharing personal business or investing points of view, I always ask or think to myself, what's the 5-year plan, right? What does the year 2030 look like with crypto, Bitcoin? Because it's we're in the second half of the decade, but 5 years is so daunting to, like, plan for because of how fast these things are moving where, again, like, I personally have, a 6-month perspective or, 1 year, but once you start getting to 3, 5 years and we talk about AI, Bitcoin, crypto, all these things, it's like, one of the questions I ask myself is like, would that impact my own personal investing strategy? Or how will my career evolve, from role to, and it's just, again, and we talk about singularity, AGI, these are kind of buzzwords, but like it sneaks up on you. It's gradually, then suddenly, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's all these like macro themes all happen at once. So one, this is the most exciting time to be alive and to lean into these things. But then, and there's a lot of folks out there that ignore it or trust others to take care of it for you. Hey, are you the crypto guy for me? Or are you the computer person? Like, my printer, my grandson handles that, that whole thing. And so
Totally. Totally.
I guess my question is very broad and you don't have to share anything private, but it's like, what is your like 2030 point of view? When you think about your role and where people and how people are meeting you, like, are they trusting you to carry them to 2030? You know?
Yeah, they are. I think so. I think I've desensitized them to volatility quite enough where they're just like, we'll see what it looks like in 5 years. Yeah, a lot of my clients I don't think are, technically really appreciate how disruptive this technology will be, but they appreciate its potential and they just want to outsource all that energy and, have someone else steer that ship for them. But, the way I look at it is most people like, the human mind thinks everything linear, thinks of everything in terms of linear. They have trouble conceptualizing kind of exponential trends.
Mhm.
But Bitcoiners, do a good job of this. When you zoom out, you have gold over time, money supply over time, you get these exponential curves. And a lot of people that are Bitcoiners think that this is inevitable, right? You think this is like infinite money glitch where, you know, the flaws of something like fiat currency are actually becoming now commonly known. Like inflation is a flaw. It is maybe it has some small at times benefits, but because it has that centralized control, there is a market for a non-inflationary currency, right? There always has been a market for that. That market has proven thousands of years with gold. And so now we just like technically developed a better format of that. Right. And it's
Mhm.
like really, really, really good. And so what is going to be the balance of decentralized value with all this centralized value, all these things denominated in currencies? Well, do I think we're at the equilibrium from that? Like, not even close. I think we're in the first inning. The probability Bitcoin goes well over 1 million is a lot higher than it goes down to 10,000. And that's incredibly asymmetric. And like when people think about investing, they should really zoom out and appreciate that. Like, that is definitely more probable. And that's by definition asymmetric. If you want to invest for outperformance, these are like some of the obvious, almost certain things you should be looking at. And Bitcoin's the tip of the iceberg with that technology. So I try to look of like, yeah, from the perspective of 2030, looking backwards. And, our generation and younger generations really appreciate crypto. Like, oh yeah, that makes obvious sense. It's the older generations that have had these traditional assets for a long time. They have to kind of unlearn a lot of things. But any generation of ours or older, they lived through that internet era. They saw when we went from 0 to 1, no one has an email address, everyone has an email address, right? And so I'm on the one big cycle, one big cycle track. I think we're in one big cycle. So yeah, it's jagged but exponential. But
Yeah.
it's going to be kind of the schemorphic growth. What do you track along that? You track adoption. You need that regulatory clarity, which is happening. And the adoption is happening. Like people in the industry have been begging for this traction because we know it's inevitable. And society's slow adoption, understanding, acceptance of disruption. That's where things take longer. But one of my biggest takes is that from a technical perspective, all this is already done. And it's just the people that know how to operate in decentralized finance. They know how to get yields with stable coins. They know how to get outperformance. But I think that starts to blend together, and the access to all of that starts to open up to the mainstream.
Well said. Yeah, I like what you're saying about linear versus log scale, or just we're not our brains aren't wired to think exponentials. But once you know where to find the graphs, you can see the Bitcoin adoption curve in log. It's just gradually going up, and yeah, you said a lot of things there that I agree with. I think the boomers, they're either fiat maxis or some of them did the work and became gold bugs. But then now we have digitally transformed gold, which is the Bitcoin and so forth. And yeah, this is the next 5 years. I think are going to be very interesting. I think regulations are coming together. Yeah, it's an interesting place to be where your clients come to you for your point of view and trusting you to get you there. And again, you're kind of stripping away the volatility. You have a point of view. You're on the cutting edge. I guess you don't I like as an end user to benefit from it, right? That's always the thing.
Like like to operate the business, or for like advice, or
Yeah, like everyone's like, like what is the edge of the AI? And it's like some of us are using it and are on the edge, and other people are just looking for the investment opportunities in it, like the Nvidias and the the companies that are keeping the market afloat, right? And so it's one of these things where I think people can benefit from this without having to use it themselves. But then there's these people like us that are like using the technology and are the guideposts and kind of, helping people along the way.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I still use AI as the check and balances for any thesis. If you see a piece of information that is provocative, right? Like, whether it's a conspiracy theory, or like some analysis and something you're interested in, AI allows you to double click it, get the source data, and through that source data, you can, create your own level of credibility, and then place your bets accordingly. There's a lot of deep technical stuff in AIs where you have to, it's like, how many clicks do you go, right? Like, I saw this one topic this guy was talking about. Most people, if they're not authentically interested in the topic, they'll go read the headline, memorize the highlight, and then at a social dinner conversation, oh yeah, I read an article about this, blah blah blah, and here's my take, and I'm happy to piggyback that take. But if you're generally interested, you click again and you want to understand it better. You click again, you want to understand this concept. This is how the rabbit hole continues. But that really requires an organic level of curiosity, in that, on that subject. And so if you're not authentically curious on that subject, you're not going to double click. You're not going to go 10 clicks. You're not going to go 15. But with AI, it allows you to go so many clicks. So you can become these really niche, finite levels of subject matter expertise. I think it's great. I think it's great. It's just, people underappreciate how lucky we are to have access to that in our pockets all the time. And so we are, just about to see what blossoms from this. And so it's very exciting. So I use it in that capacity. And in my
Yeah.
Substack, I'll make a quick note, like I'll make all these claims, and I'll just say, double check my analyst's work. Of course, that'll be a link to like XAI, or I use Perplexity a lot too, just saying like, is everything David says true? And I'll just be like, yes. And then break it down, right? With all the source code.
Well said. Yeah, and I said earlier the hallucinations. You have to hold the AI accountable that they don't make up the site sources that aren't there and hallucinate. But then I think what's great about the human interface back to the AI is to say, "Oh, I'm the subject matter expert. I'm genuinely curious about this. I've done the work. I've double clicked, triple clicked, read the books, gone down the rabbit hole." And I think that's a good way to test these AI models too, is to make sure that when you're a subject matter expert, it's to hear that opinion. What does Elon Musk say about blank? And you're like, if he's new to your industry and he says something outrageous, you can be like, well, maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about. If I'm a domain subject expert, so I always like holding the experts or the people that are famous as well as the LLMs to accountable, basically based on our own personal work. But yeah, well said. Okay, I think we're going to wrap here. This has been a pleasure. It's been great talking to you. So, David, where can people find you?
X is probably where I'm the most candid. I'm at Marquardt Capital. That's my name, Capital. And I'm also on LinkedIn, David Marquardt. Those are probably the best public sources.
RT. Sounds good. We'll put the links in the show notes. David, this has been a fun conversation. Thanks for having it with me. And we kind of went all over the place, but it's a good time. So thank you.
Likewise, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you again soon.
Cheers.